Hi guys, as promised, I am here with a video on Percy Jackson. In this video, I will be discussing the 5 books in detail, or as much detail as I can go in, about the character arcs. And I'm going to divide this video into 4 parts essentially. In the first part, we will discuss why Percy matters, why is he important. In the second part, I will discuss his character arc book by book in the first 5 books, from The Lightning Thief to The Last Olympian. In the third part, we will talk about Percy's relation to his plot, his setting, and his theme, and what makes him stand out. And in the last part, I will give you some tips on how to create a protagonist of your own that is as good as Percy. So I will put the timestamps for all of these in the description. If you want to skip to a particular part and just get what you want, you can do that. If you want to stick around for the whole video, I would actually rather you stick around for the whole video and maybe take some notes about his character arc and how he changes to give you a better understanding of what makes him special. We are going to break Percy down to his very core, to his very structure, and try to build him up this time with different values and different characteristics to see if we can create a character of our own that is as good as Percy Jackson. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about importance. What makes Percy so important in the books? We need to understand that he's not just a narrator or a vessel for us to explore this mythological world. No, not really. He is the emotional compass of the entire series. So without Percy, this entire world of monsters and Greek gods and prophecies kind of just falls apart. So Rick Riordan did not give us this golden boy. No, he gave us a boy who is sarcastic, scrappy, underdog. He basically gave us a boy with learning disabilities, a rage problem, and abandonment issues. So when we explore Percy, we get this really strong sense of alienation. Him being kicked out of school after school really gives us the sense that he's unwanted by the people around him. Then secondly, there is a lot of anger and rage, whether that be at unfair authority figures or at his best friend being bullied. We know he doesn't stay silent about it, and him not staying silent shows us that he has a really strong moral compass. So Percy's the kind of guy who doesn't really care about winning. He cares about doing the right thing, even if it is stupidly dangerous. So here's the genius part. Percy does not just entertain us when we look at the world through him. He educates us on the world because we are learning everything about this new world along with him. So he educates us on sacrifice and trauma, everything, without ever talking down to us. So not only is he the son of Poseidon, he's also the stand-in for the reader without ever being condescending. That is what makes Percy Jackson so important and so unique in young adult fantasy. Alright, so let's really talk about Percy through the first 5 books and get into book by book how his character evolves. So we start by meeting this chaotic sea child middle school kid who kind of ends up becoming a selfless war hero. So each book peels back a layer of Percy, and by the end of it, he's completely transformed. So we are going to start with the first book, The Lightning Thief. Now the arc for this book is mostly identity crisis and awakening. So let's get into this. Now when we meet Percy, we basically meet him for the first time when he's at his absolute rock bottom. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know where he fits. He's angry, he's bitter, he's scared, and he covers it all up with sarcasm and aggression, which are generally classic trauma response. So, but things suddenly change for him when he realizes that his mother, who's his only safe person, is in danger. And suddenly his identity is like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, he's the son of Poseidon, which gives him powers that others don't have. But it also makes him a target. And on the other hand, he realizes that gods are not noble. They are egotistical, they are distant, and they are full of rage. So at the end, Percy ends up rejecting immortality, which shows us that he values choice, freedom, and humanity over some divine reward. So, with Percy, the main character defining moment in The Lightning Thief is when he decides to go on the quest. Even though it is extremely dangerous, he doesn't do it for becoming a hero or for some reward, he only does it to save his mother. This is the best way to summarize Percy's character arc in The Lightning Thief. Now let's get into the second book, which is The Sea of Monsters. The arc for this book can easily be defined as loyalty versus obedience. So this book really tests Percy's loyalty. He is told to stay put, to follow the rules, and to let the grown-ups handle it. But when Grover's life is in danger, Percy disobeys. So we see Percy's world really open up here because he starts to see the toxic legacies created by these gods in the form of Luke's arc or the hatred for Cyclops. But Tyson's intro into his world really brings this tension between unconditional love and embarrassment. But over time, we see that Percy learns to fiercely love and defend his brother publicly. So he also starts to question certain systems like why is Thalia's tree failing? Why are kids like Luke so angry? And why can't gods see the chaos that they have created? He starts to question all of that. And by the end of the book, we realize that Percy has really solidified his values now. He has accepted Tyson wholly and completely publicly, even if it has cost him socially. He has chosen people over pride. And we start to see Percy's actual self and his values solidify by the end of book 2. Now let's talk about the Titan's Curse, which is book 3. It is the saddest book, but it is also one of my favorites. The arc for this book can be defined as confronting mortality and emotional vulnerability. This is Percy's grief book. This is his first taste of death that he cannot fix. When Bianca dies, Percy is devastated, not just because she was a part of the quest, but because he promised Nico that he would bring her back. So we see Percy's protector instinct really shine through here, the way he blames himself when other people die, even when it's not his fault. So this emotional build-up of blaming himself and responsibility, leadership, failure, all of this starts to build on him. But it is not guilt that hardens Percy. It is empathy. We also see Percy's relationship with Annabeth really start to deepen by this time in the book. It is still subtle, but there is a lot of tension. He risks everything for her. And this is when Percy really realizes that love is not just about sweet romantic gestures. It is painful, it is terrifying, and it is messy. So the key character defining moment in this book for Percy is when Nico shouts at him, he does not defend himself. He silently stands there and he takes it. He carries Nico's grief alone, all by himself, because he understands that Nico needs someone to blame. And Percy is more than willing to be that person for him. So we really see that aforementioned empathy shine through beautifully in this scene. So this is why The Titan's Curse is one of my favorite books in terms of Percy's character arc. Let's talk about book 4, which is The Battle of the Labyrinth. The arc for this book can be defined as growing into leadership, but also an identity crisis 2.0. So in this book, we see Percy starting to take initiative. He's not acting on impulse anymore. He is rallying others, he's strategizing, and he's thinking long term. And we also see Percy starting to realize the consequences of war. He sees fear, betrayal, everyone turning against each other. His questions and his doubts about gods really start to bloom in this book. He starts to question their cruelty, their decisions, and he starts to understand why kids like Ethan fall to the enemy. It is also in this moment that we see Percy becoming more introspective. He's still funny, he still has that light-hearted energy to him, but he's maturing and he's realizing that being a hero isn't just about fighting monsters. It's about making impossible choices that still hurt. So, the key defining moment for Percy in this book is when he realizes that Luke isn't just evil, Luke is broken. And Percy himself could end up becoming like Luke if he doesn't find a way to channel his rage, or if he lets his aggression win out, he might also end up becoming like Luke. So that is the best way to summarize book 4. Now let's talk about the last book, which is The Last Olympian. The character arc for Percy in this book is heroic fulfillment and self-actualization. This book is Percy at his peak, his fullest, not just because he's strong, though he did take a dip in the sticks and become an absolute tank, but also because he's emotionally complete. He does not fight for glory anymore. He does not fight to prove anything to anyone anymore. He fights because it's the right thing to do, point blank. He is also comfortable and lets others be the hero sometimes. Annabeth, Grover, Thalia, they're not just sidekicks anymore. He trusts them to lead. And his moment with Luke, where he offers him a chance to redeem himself, that shows a level of empathy that is truly powerful. Now, he declines immortality again because he knows that being a god is not the same as being a good person. Percy, over and over again, even in this book, we see the point being reiterated where he chooses mortality, love, and justice over being an Olympian with a lot of power but not enough soul. So the character defining moment for Percy in this book is when he lets Annabeth take the reins when it comes to rebuilding Olympus. Because he's not here to rule, he's here to rebuild it and make it better. So this was my analysis or whatever of the the 5 books of this series, and I just want to say I really love these books a lot with everything that I have. I grew up reading them. They mean everything to me, and I love Rick Riordan for writing these books. And Percy has really inspired me as a character that I have tried to internalize wherever I can in my life. So we really see Percy's character arc where he goes from this misfit who has anger issues and underdog kid to this selfless hero who is kind, who leads without ego, and is fiercely loyal. So I just truly think we should just sit for 5 seconds and appreciate how beautifully his character arc is written. Now let's get into the third part of the video, which is Percy and the world around him. Here we will discuss Percy's relation to his plot, setting, and his theme, and how he is literally the glue that holds it together. So for the plot, Percy's actions literally change the course of mythological history. He is not just destined to save the world. He chooses to every single time, from rejecting Kronos to negotiating with Zeus. Percy acts out of love, not ego. And when we look at his setting, this whole, Greek mythology taking place in modern day America, it's about this kid that is snarky and unimpressed by everything around him, yet he allows us to experience the magical elements of this setting while keeping us grounded. If, for instance, Rick Riordan had given us a stuffy, stuck-up protagonist, the setting would have collapsed under its own weight. So Percy is the one who bridges the gap between the modern day America and this magical world of Greek mythology. Now, the theme. I just want to draw a quick short parallel. In my video about good protagonists, where I talked about Dean Winchester and Geralt of Rivia, I feel like Dean's themes are very similar to Percy's themes. Family, free will versus fate, identity, sacrifice, love. All of these things are on some level kind of overlap with Dean's themes as well. So just wanted to point that out because I find that a little interesting. So we see Percy's life and his theme is basically this constant battle between prophecy and personal choice. We see Percy struggling to meet expectations yet somehow defy them at the same time. So this is what makes Percy stand out. His relation to his plot and his setting and his theme, how none of this can basically exist at all without him. And that is what makes him such a great protagonist. So now let's get into the last part of the video, where I give you some tips on how you can build a protagonist that is as good as Percy Jackson. Now, how can you write a Percy to your protagonist? I'm going to give you 5 basic points that, in my opinion, make Percy special. So first of all, the first one is, what is going to be the wound of your protagonist? For Percy, his wound was rejection. Rejection by his dad, by the mortal world, by all the schools that he was kicked out of. Everything Percy did was a reaction to the pain that he felt from this rejection. So what is going to be the wound of your character? Second, make their flaws hurt. Percy's loyalty came with a cost. His impulsiveness got people hurt. Readers don't like a perfect protagonist. They want a flawed protagonist who screws up, feels like shit about it, but gets up and does work anyway. Third, what is your character's core value? Something that they value a lot. We think Percy's core value is bravery or strength, but no. His core value is loyalty. What is going to be your protagonist's core value? Something that they will choose even if it costs them. Decide that. Fourth is, make them influence the world around them. Percy did not just exist in Riordan's world. He changed it from the gods' shift to the reforming Olympus. Percy made valuable changes in the book, in the whole series, in the world around him. So don't have your protagonist be thrown around by the story. Give your protagonist control of the story. Make them change it. Make them shape it. And the last one, my favorite, give your character humor. Percy's dry humor, his sass, is what makes like the intense moments hit even harder. So never underestimate the humor. It literally will disarm your readers. Again, I'm drawing a parallel again. Dean Winchester, his humor, his sarcasm, that is what we love about him. He's also like Percy in the sense that they both hide their pain behind sarcasm and being snappy and just being funny in a very dry way or whatever. So never underestimate the importance of adding humor to your character. Make them funny, but in like an intense way. At least that is how you make a protagonist that is like Percy. So I wanted to keep this video short. I didn't want to ramble on a lot. So these are like the 5 points that I think can really make your protagonist stand out and make them more Percy-like. I just want to end this video by saying that Percy Jackson is timeless. Not because he's powerful or perfect, but because he is authentic. He teaches us that even the most flawed and angry kid can grow up to become a symbol of leadership, love, growth, and a symbol of hope. So if you're a reader, I would say go reread the series. You will catch a lot of things that you didn't as a kid. I read that book myself when I was maybe 11, and then I read it again as a 23-year-old, and I catch so many things that I didn't before. And if you're a writer, deconstruct Percy. Really deconstruct him. Get to his very structure and take his help to build characters of your own that breathe, that feel authentic in their own self. So, and if you just like, the whole chaotic demigod stuff, just maybe subscribe, because I love talking about that stuff. And if there are any other characters that you want me to get into and analyze and talk about, let me know in the comments. I hope you guys have a good day.